I think I didn't do anything wrong, just told a joke at dinner. Everyone laughed except my husband. Now, I'm staring at divorce papers that arrived at my office, and my phone is full of messages from family demanding answers. All this because of one offhand comment about my past. But let me start from the beginning, because everyone seems to have forgotten that marriages are supposed to survive a little humor, right? The restaurant was perfect. One of those trendy downtown places with exposed brick and Edison bulbs hanging everywhere. I'd chosen it specifically because I knew it would impress our friends, and honestly, because I knew the atmosphere would make me look good. The warm lighting always did wonders for my complexion. Evan sat across from me, picking at his salmon in that methodical way of his. My husband had always been quiet, but lately, his silence felt heavier, more judgmental. As an IT manager, he spent his days solving problems with logical solutions, and I could tell he was starting to view our marriage as another system that needed debugging. So, Alethea, my sister Mira laughed, already on her third glass of wine. Remember when you used to say you'd never settle down? You were such a wild child in college. The opening was perfect. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the attention of the table shift to me, exactly where I liked it. Oh, please. If we're talking about wild college days, I think my body count speaks for itself. A few nervous chuckles rippled around the table. Nancy, Evan's mother, stiffened in her chair. Greg, his father, suddenly became very interested in his wine glass. But I was on a roll. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I mean, let's be honest, I continued, gesturing with my fork. Some of us were more experienced before marriage than others. I glanced meaningfully at Evan, whose face had gone completely blank. Not everyone can say they really lived before settling down. Dean Foster, my old college friend who'd recently moved back to town, raised his eyebrows with an amused smirk. He was the reason I'd suggested this group dinner in the first place. We'd been texting more frequently since he'd returned, and I'd been enjoying the attention from someone who actually appreciated my wit. Alethea, my mother Joan said with a forced laugh, you're terrible. But I wasn't done. The wine had loosened my tongue, and honestly, I was tired of Evan's recent coldness. What? We're all adults here. I'm just saying, experience matters. Some people know what they want because they've explored their options. 8-year-old Sophie, our daughter, looked confused by the tension suddenly crackling around the table. Mommy, what's a body count? The silence that followed was deafening. It's nothing, sweetheart, Evan said quietly, his voice strained. He stood up abruptly. I'm going to get some air. Oh, come on, I called after him, but he was already walking away. It was just a joke. The rest of the dinner passed in awkward small talk. I tried to salvage the mood, but Nancy kept shooting me disapproving looks, and even Mira seemed uncomfortable. Only Dean appeared entertained by the whole thing. As we were leaving, he leaned close to me in the parking lot. Careful, he texted me later that night. You're playing with fire. But I wasn't worried. Evan would get over it. He always did. When I got home, I found him sitting in our living room in complete darkness, his phone glowing in his hands. He didn't look up when I walked in. Evan, what are you doing sitting in the dark? He didn't answer, just kept staring at his phone screen, his jaw tight. That's when I should have known something had fundamentally shifted. The next few days, Evan barely spoke to me. He'd get up early, make Sophie breakfast, and leave for work without his usual goodbye kiss. When he came home, he'd help Sophie with homework, put her to bed, and then disappear into his home office. You're being ridiculous, I told him on Wednesday night, cornering him in our bedroom. Everyone knows I was just joking around. You're taking this way too seriously. He looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger exactly, but something colder. Am I? Yes, God, Evan, when did you become so sensitive? It's like I can't say anything without you taking it personally. Maybe because it was personal, Alethea. You humiliated me in front of our families. I rolled my eyes. I made a joke about the past. Our past. If you can't handle a little teasing. About your body count being higher than mine? About how you explored your options? In front of our daughter and our parents? Sophie didn't understand what I meant. But everyone else did. He was being impossible. Look, if your ego is bruised because I had more experience before we met, that's your problem to deal with. I can't help it if you were less adventurous. The look he gave me then was so cold, it actually made me step back. This isn't about experience, Alethea. This is about respect. Oh, please, spare me the lecture. He turned away from me, and I heard him mutter something under his breath that sounded like, I should have known. The next morning, Nancy called me while I was at work. Alethea, I think we need to talk. Her tone was crisp, formal. Nancy had never been my biggest fan, but she'd always been polite. This was different. About what? About what happened at dinner. About how you spoke to my son. Nancy, it was just a joke. Evan is being way too sensitive about this. Is he? Because from where I sat it looked like you were deliberately trying to embarrass him. In public. In front of his child. My jaw clenched. I don't think you understand the dynamic of my marriage. I understand that my son came home looking like he'd been slapped. I understand that my granddaughter asked me why Mommy was being mean to Daddy. That stung. Sophie said that? She did. And frankly, Alethea, I'm starting to wonder if there's more going on here than just poor judgment. What's that supposed to mean? But she'd already hung up. That evening, Dean texted me. How's the fallout? Evan's being dramatic, I replied. He'll get over it, will he? You seemed pretty intent on making a point the other night. I stared at the message, feeling a flutter of something. Excitement? Validation? Dean had always understood me in ways Evan didn't. He appreciated my sharp wit, my refusal to be boring. Maybe I was. Maybe it's time he knew where he stood. Dangerous game, Alethea. But I always did like your style. I was smiling at my phone when I heard Evan's key in the door. Quickly, I deleted the message thread and slipped my phone into my purse. But when I looked up, Evan was standing in the doorway, watching me with that same cold expression. Working late? He asked. Just finishing up some emails? He nodded slowly, but something in his eyes told me he didn't believe me. That night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to find his side of the bed empty. I found him in his office typing on his laptop. When he saw me, he quickly closed it. Can't sleep? I asked. Just taking care of some things. What kind of things? Nothing that concerns you. The dismissal was so unlike him that I actually felt a chill, but I pushed it down. Evan was conflict averse. He'd cool off and things would go back to normal. They had to. The next morning, I found an email in my inbox that made my blood run cold. The subject line read, Next Steps. It was from a law firm I'd never heard of, addressed to Evan. He'd scheduled a consultation. My hands shaking, I immediately opened my phone and deleted every text message Dean had ever sent me. Then I sat in my car in the work parking lot, trying to figure out how everything had spiraled so far out of control. It was just a joke. Just one stupid joke. Wasn't it? By the following week, I could feel the shift everywhere I went. At work, conversations stopped when I entered the break room. My coworkers, who used to include me in their lunch plans, suddenly had meetings to attend. Is everything okay at home? My manager, Patricia, asked during our weekly check-in. You seem distracted lately. Everything's fine, I lied smoothly. Actually, Evan's been going through a bit of a rough patch. Work stress, you know how it is. He's been taking it out on me and Sophie. Patricia's expression softened with sympathy. I'm sorry to hear that. If you need any flexibility with your schedule, thanks. He's just been so jealous and controlling lately. I think he might be having some kind of breakdown. It wasn't true, but it felt good to have someone on my side. And if people were going to gossip anyway, I might as well control the narrative. At Sophie's school pickup that afternoon, Nancy was waiting instead of Evan. "Where's Daddy?" Sophie asked, climbing into Nancy's car instead of mine. "Daddy's working, sweetheart. You're coming to Grandma and Grandpa's today." "But it's Mommy's day," Sophie protested, looking confused. Nancy's eyes met mine over Sophie's head. Plans changed. "Excuse me?" I stepped forward. "You can't just take my daughter without discussing it with me." "I discussed it with Evan. Sophie will be staying with us until Sunday." "That's not how custody works, Nancy. She's my daughter. And she's my granddaughter, and right now she needs stability." The implication hit me like a slap. "What exactly are you trying to say?" "I'm saying that little girls shouldn't have to watch their mothers humiliate their fathers in public." Sophie was listening to every word, her eyes wide and worried. I forced a smile. "Sophie, honey, Grandma's just confused. You'll come home with Mommy tomorrow, okay?" But Nancy was already buckling Sophie into her car seat. "We'll see." As they drove away, I felt a surge of rage. How dare she? How dare any of them act like I was the villain here? My phone buzzed. A text from Dean. "Heard things are getting messy. You okay?" I started to reply, then stopped. Something about his tone felt different. Less flirtatious, more distant. Just family drama, nothing I can't handle. He didn't respond. That evening, Mira called. "Alethea, what the hell is going on?" Nancy called Mom, and Mom called me crying. She says Evan's talking about divorce? Evan's being ridiculous. I made one joke, and now he's acting like I committed adultery. What kind of joke? I explained the dinner situation, downplaying my comments and emphasizing how Evan had overreacted. Jesus, Alethea, you really said all that in front of his parents? It wasn't that bad. It sounds pretty bad. And Mom says there are rumors going around that you've been... Rumors about what? About you and Dean Foster. People are saying you two have been spending time together. My heart started racing. That's ridiculous. We're old friends. We've texted a few times since he moved back. Just texted. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm your sister and I know you. And I know that tone. There's no tone, Mira. God, everyone's losing their minds over nothing. But after I hung up, I sat in my empty house, wondering how things had gotten so out of control so quickly. The next day at work, I was called into Patricia's office. Alethea, I've had some concerns raised about your recent behavior. What kind of concerns? About personal phone calls during work hours. About some comments you've made regarding your husband. My stomach dropped. I don't understand. Several employees have reported that you've been sharing very personal information about your marriage, making accusations about your husband's mental state. I was just venting to friends. These aren't your friends, Alethea. They're your coworkers. And frankly, some of what you've said could be considered defamatory. Defamatory? Accusing your husband of being unstable and controlling when he's never shown any signs of such behavior in the years I've known him. It reflects poorly on your judgment. I felt the walls closing in. So you're taking his side too? I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm trying to maintain a professional workplace. I'm going to need you to keep your personal life personal from now on. As I walked back to my desk, I could feel eyes on me everywhere. The whispers followed me down the hallway. That afternoon, as I was leaving work, Evan was waiting by my car. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Finally. I was wondering when you'd stop giving me the silent treatment." "I know everything, Alethea." The words hit me like ice water. "Know what?" "About Dean, about the texts, About the meetings. I don't know what you're talking about. He pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. It was a text conversation between Dean and me from 2 weeks ago, talking about meeting for coffee. How did he have that? Where did you get this? Does it matter? You went through my phone? I didn't have to. Before I could ask what he meant, he placed a manila folder on the hood of my car. What's this? Everything. All of it. My hands shook as I opened the folder. Inside were printed screenshots of text messages, photos of me and Dean at a coffee shop downtown, call logs showing dozens of conversations between us. Evan, I can explain. No, he said quietly. You can't. Because there's no explanation that makes this okay. He turned and walked away, leaving me standing in the parking lot with the evidence of my betrayal spread out on my car hood. That's when I realized that my quiet, methodical husband had been building a case against me, and I was about to find out just how thorough he could be. The next morning I woke up to find my debit card declined at the coffee shop. Confused and embarrassed, I tried my credit card. Also declined. My phone buzzed with an email. Your access to joint accounts has been suspended by court order. Court order? I called Evan immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. Then I called the bank. Mrs. Morrow, your husband filed an emergency motion yesterday. All joint assets have been frozen pending a hearing. He can't do that. I'm afraid he can, ma'am. You'll need to speak with your attorney. My attorney? I didn't have an attorney. At work, Patricia called me into her office again. This time, someone from HR was there. Alethea, we need to discuss some concerns that have been brought to our attention. What now? About your use of company resources for personal matters, and about some social media posts that have come to our attention. They showed me printouts of Facebook posts I'd made over the past week, posts where I'd vented about Evan's controlling behavior and jealousy issues, posts where I'd implied he was having mental health problems. These posts have been shared with your husband's employer, the HR representative said. They've also been reported as potentially defamatory. I was upset. People vent on social media all the time. Not about their spouses in ways that could damage their professional reputation. Mr. Morrow is well respected in his field. These accusations could seriously harm his career. So what are you saying? We're saying you need to take some time off, unpaid leave, until this situation resolves itself. I felt like I was drowning. You're suspending me? We're giving you space to handle your personal affairs. As I cleaned out my desk, my coworkers avoided eye contact. The whispers followed me all the way to the elevator. In the parking garage, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Is this Alethea Morrow? Yes? This is Jennifer Foster, Dean's wife. My blood turned to ice. I think we need to have a conversation about your relationship with my husband. I don't know what you mean. I mean the text messages, the coffee dates, the phone calls. Should I go on? We're just friends. Friends don't send the kind of messages you've been sending. Friends don't meet in hotel bars. Friends don't make plans to meet when the spouse is out of town. Hotel bars? When had Dean told her about that? Mrs. Foster, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding is yours. If you think Dean gives a damn about you beyond a convenient distraction, you're delusional. He showed me everything, Alethea. Every desperate text, every pathetic attempt to get his attention. He thinks you're a joke. The line went dead. I sat in my car, shaking. Dean had betrayed me too. He'd shown his wife our private conversations, probably laughed about them together. That evening, I went to pick up Sophie from school, but she wasn't there. Sophie Morrow was picked up by her father, the secretary told me, but it's my day. I'm sorry, but we have a note here that pickup arrangements have changed. I drove to Evan's parents' house, but no one answered the door, even though I could see lights on inside. Finally, Evan called me back. "Where's my daughter?" "She's safe. I want to see her." "That's not going to happen right now. You can't keep her from me." "Actually, I can. I filed for emergency custody this morning." "On what grounds?" "Emotional instability, inappropriate behavior in front of a minor, potential adultery affecting the child's well-being." "I never had an affair." "Didn't you?" The question hung in the air, because we both knew the answer. Maybe I hadn't slept with Dean, but I'd wanted to. I'd been planning to. I'd been emotionally cheating for months. "Evan, please, we can work this out." "No, Alethea, we can't. Because even now, you're not sorry. You're just sorry you got caught." He was right, and we both knew it. "I'll fight this," I said. "I know you will. And you'll lose." After he hung up, I sat in my empty house, looking at the divorce papers that had been served that morning. The list of grounds was extensive: adultery, emotional cruelty, public humiliation, financial irresponsibility. But it was the custody section that broke me. Evan was asking for primary custody, with me getting supervised visitation only. I called Mira, but she didn't answer. I called my mother, but she just cried on the phone and said she didn't know what to think anymore. Finally, I called Dean. "Alethea, you can't keep calling me." "Your wife called me. She said you showed her our messages." "She found them on my phone. What was I supposed to do?" "Deny it. Protect me." "Protect you? Alethea, you're married. This whole thing was a mistake." "A mistake? Is that what I am to you? You're a woman who was unhappy in her marriage and looking for attention. I gave you attention. Now it's over." "Dean, please." "Don't call me again." The line went dead. I poured myself a glass of wine, then another. By the time I finished the bottle, I was crying so hard I could barely see. How had everything gone so wrong so fast? All because of one stupid joke at dinner. Except it wasn't just one joke, was it? It was months of flirting with Dean. It was years of taking Evan for granted. It was a lifetime of thinking I could manipulate my way out of any situation. But Evan wasn't playing games anymore, and I was about to learn just how serious he'd become. The lawyer I finally managed to hire was not encouraging. "Mrs. Morrow, I have to be honest with you. This case is going to be very difficult to win." Sarah Chen was expensive, sharp, and clearly unimpressed with my situation. She spread the evidence across her conference table like a prosecutor laying out a murder case. "Your husband has been very thorough. Phone records, text messages, photographs, witness statements. He even has GPS data from your car showing repeated visits to locations where you met with Mr. Foster." "How does he have GPS data from my car?" "Your phone, actually. Location services. It's all legal." I stared at the papers, feeling sick. "So what do we do?" "We try to minimize the damage. The adultery claim might not stick since you didn't actually sleep with Mr. Foster, but the emotional affair is well documented. The public humiliation angle is strong. He has witnesses to the restaurant incident, and your social media posts about him are problematic." I was just venting. "You accused your husband of being mentally unstable and controlling. You made posts suggesting he was abusive. These posts were screenshot before you deleted them, and they've been shared with his employer and your mutual friends. Can we claim I was having a breakdown, that I wasn't in my right mind?" Sarah looked at me carefully. "Were you having a breakdown?" I thought about it. Was I? Or was I just angry that my perfect life was falling apart? "I don't know," I said finally. "That's not a legal strategy, Mrs. Morrow." The custody hearing was a nightmare. Evan sat across the courtroom looking calm and composed, while I felt like I was falling apart. His lawyer presented their case with surgical precision. Nancy testified about the restaurant incident, about Sophie's confusion and distress. Greg testified about my erratic behavior at family gatherings. Even my own mother seemed uncertain when she took the stand. "Joan, Do you believe your daughter is in a stable place right now to care for an 8-year-old child? My mother looked at me with tears in her eyes. I think Alethea is going through a very difficult time. I think she needs help. The worst part was Sophie's interview with the court-appointed guardian. When she came out of the judge's chambers, she ran to Evan, not to me. The child expressed concern about her mother's angry feelings and stated she felt safer with her father, the guardian reported. She also mentioned that her mother had been saying mean things about Daddy and that it made her scared. I wanted to scream that I'd never meant to hurt Sophie, that everything I'd done was just… What? What had it been for? For attention, for validation, for the thrill of feeling desired by someone new? The judge's ruling was swift and brutal. Primary custody to Evan. Supervised visitation for me twice a week for 2 hours each time. The court finds that while Mrs. Morrow has not committed any acts of physical abuse, her recent behavior demonstrates poor judgment and a concerning disregard for her child's emotional well-being. Until she can demonstrate sustained stability and complete appropriate counseling, her access to the minor child will remain limited. As I walked out of the courthouse, I saw Dean getting into his car across the street. He saw me too, but he looked away quickly and drove off. Even he was embarrassed by me now. The moving truck arrived on a Tuesday morning. I watched from the window as strangers loaded up the life Evan and I had built together. The couch where we used to watch movies, Sophie's toy chest, the dining room table where we'd shared thousands of meals, where I'd made the joke that started this whole nightmare. Evan supervised the move with his usual quiet efficiency. He'd already found a smaller place across town, closer to his parents. Sophie would have her own room there, decorated with all her favorite things. I got to keep the house, but it felt like a punishment rather than a victory. Every room echoed with memories of what I'd destroyed. My phone rang. It was Mira. Alethea, I saw the court records. And I think you need help. Real help. Everyone keeps saying that. What kind of help? Therapy. Maybe a support group. You can't keep going like this. Like what? Like nothing is your fault. Like everyone else is crazy and you're the victim. I hung up on her. An hour later, my mother called. Alethea, honey, I love you, but I can't keep enabling this. Enabling what? Your refusal to take responsibility. Your need to blame everyone else for your choices. So you're abandoning me too? I'm not abandoning you. I'm telling you that you need to do some serious soul-searching. That little girl needs her mother, but she needs a mother who's healthy and stable. I am stable. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've destroyed your marriage, alienated your family, lost your job, and damaged your relationship with your daughter, all because you couldn't resist flirting with an old boyfriend. The truth of it hit me like a physical blow. Mom, I'll always love you, sweetheart, but I won't lie for you anymore, and I won't pretend that what you did was okay. That evening, I tried one last desperate gambit. I wrote Evan a long email, pouring out my heart, begging for another chance. I told him how sorry I was, how much I loved him, how I'd do anything to fix this. I even hinted that I might hurt myself if he didn't give us another chance. The response came from his lawyer. Any further attempts to contact Mr. Morrow directly will be considered harassment. Your email has been forwarded to the appropriate authorities as a potential threat of self-harm. Even my manipulation tactics had backfired. The next morning, I watched from my window as Evan's car pulled into the driveway. Sophie got out, wearing a new dress I'd never seen before. She looked happy, healthy. She ran up to the door where Nancy was waiting with open arms. They were picking up the last of Sophie's things, her favorite stuffed animals, some books she'd left behind. I wanted to run outside, to hug my daughter, to tell her I was sorry. But the court order was clear: no unsupervised contact. As they loaded Sophie's belongings into the car, I saw Evan look up at my window. For a moment, Our eyes met. I thought I saw something there. Not anger anymore, but something worse. Pity. Then he got in the car with our daughter and drove away. I haven't seen them since. The divorce was finalized on a rainy Thursday in March. I sat alone in the courtroom while lawyers discussed the division of assets, custody arrangements, and spousal support. Evan wasn't even there. His attorney handled everything. I kept the house but had to refinance to buy out Evan's half. I found a new job, but it paid less than my old one. The supervised visitation continued, but Sophie seemed more distant each time. She talked about her new room at Daddy's house, about the friends she'd made in her new neighborhood. She was moving on without me. Dean and his wife moved away. I heard through mutual friends that his company had transferred him to another city. I wondered if he'd told his wife about other women, or if I'd been the wake-up call that saved their marriage. I started therapy, mostly because the court required it for any chance of getting unsupervised visitation back. Dr. Martinez was patient, but direct. What do you think you were really looking for when you started the relationship with Dean? It wasn't a relationship. We were just friends. Were you? Fine. We were flirting. But I never slept with him. Why do you think the physical act matters more than the emotional betrayal? I didn't have an answer for that. What do you think that joke at the restaurant was really about? I was just being funny. Were you? Or were you trying to hurt your husband? I don't know. I think you do know. I think you were angry at Evan for something, and you used that dinner as a way to publicly humiliate him. He was being distant, cold. I felt like he didn't appreciate me anymore. So you decided to punish him. The word hung in the air. Punish. Had that been what I was doing? Maybe, I said finally. And Dean, was he punishment too? No, Dean made me feel special, desired, like I mattered. And Evan didn't make you feel that way? Not anymore. He took me for granted. Did he? Or did you take him for granted? I thought about Evan's quiet devotion, his steady presence, the way he'd always supported my career even when it meant more work for him at home. The way he'd put Sophie to bed every night, reading her the same stories over and over because she loved them. When had I stopped seeing all of that? I think, I said slowly, I wanted drama. I wanted to feel like the heroine of my own story instead of just a wife and mother. And how did that work out for you? I looked around my empty house, thought about my daughter who barely hugged me anymore, about the man who'd loved me for 15 years and now wouldn't even look at me. It didn't. People always talk about consequences like they're something that happens to you, like weather or traffic. But consequences aren't external forces. They're the natural result of your choices echoing back to you. I chose to flirt with Dean. I chose to meet him for coffee, to text him late at night, to share intimate details about my marriage with someone who wasn't my husband. I chose to humiliate Evan in public because I was angry that he'd grown distant, never stopping to wonder if maybe I'd been distant first. I chose to lie, to gaslight, to manipulate everyone around me rather than face the truth about what I'd done. And Evan chose to stop fighting for a marriage I'd already abandoned. The hardest part isn't the divorce or the custody arrangement or even the loneliness. The hardest part is realizing that I destroyed something good because I was bored, because I wanted to feel special, because I thought I deserved more excitement than a quiet, steady love. Sophie is 10 now. She calls me every Sunday and we have lunch twice a month. She's polite, affectionate even, but there's a distance there that might never fully heal. She knows I hurt her father. She knows I chose my own desires over her stability. Children forgive, but they don't forget. Evan remarried last year. A woman from his office, kind, stable, good with Sophie. I heard about it through Mira, who's slowly rebuilding our relationship. The new wife doesn't try to replace me in Sophie's life, which somehow makes it worse. She's secure enough not to see me as a threat. I suppose that's what emotional maturity looks like. I still live in our old house, though I've redecorated completely. Too many memories in the old furniture. too many ghosts in familiar corners. Sometimes I drive past their new place and see Sophie playing in the yard, laughing with her stepmother, and I feel a stab of something that might be regret, or might just be envy. Dr. Martinez says I'm making progress. I can see my patterns now, the need for attention, the tendency to blame others for my choices, the way I used to weaponize my emotions to get what I wanted. Recognition isn't the same as healing, but it's a start. I date sometimes, but it's different now. I'm different. The men I meet now see a divorced woman with baggage, not the charming, witty woman I used to be. Or maybe I was never as charming as I thought. Maybe what I mistook for wit was just cruelty dressed up in clever words. The restaurant where it all started closed during the pandemic. I drove past the empty building last week and tried to remember what I'd been thinking that night, what had possessed me to say those things. But that woman feels like a stranger to me now, so confident in her own righteousness, so sure that her feelings justified any behavior. I understand now what Evan meant when he said it wasn't about experience. It was about respect. It was about the basic human decency you owe to someone who's built a life with you, who's trusted you with their heart and their child and their future. I threw all of that away for what? For a few months of feeling desired by a man who didn't even respect me enough to be honest about his intentions? The joke's on me, I suppose. They say that admitting you have a problem is the first step, but I think the first step is actually admitting that the problem is you. Not your circumstances, not other people's reactions, not the unfairness of consequences. Just you. I made choices. I hurt people. I destroyed trust that took years to build and will never be fully rebuilt. And I have to live with that. Some stories don't have happy endings. Some mistakes can't be undone. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the point isn't redemption, or forgiveness, or getting back what you lost. Maybe the point is just learning to live with the weight of your choices and trying to do better going forward. I'm still learning. Every day, I'm still learning. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.